and welcome back to my channel. So today I am drawing myself as a vampire. As everyone knows, once Christmas items become available on supermarket shelves, you know Halloween is about a month around the corner. So I'm doing a little bit of a Halloween themed Spooktober video. I will do a few of these throughout the month, and I am going to be drawing myself as a vampire. This is Pumpkin, by the way. She's pretty Halloween themed herself. She's orange, she's fat, and she's a pumpkin. So anyways, let's just dive right in and make some art. Hey, beautiful. Stop drooling on me. So I started off just getting some rough little thumbnail sketches down in my sketchbook, and I did this because I really want to try and plan this out and draw something and sort of think about it a little bit, because sometimes I just dive right in and make an illustration where I could have experimented a little bit more and perhaps come out with something a little better. So here I'm just sketching out some poses for this vampire, and I started off with one sort of floating with its arms out, trying to look like it's leering, and the other one I decided to go with like a more laid back, chill, cheeky one, which is drinking blood out of a bottle. And I ended up really liking that one because it adds a bit of cheekiness to it without being like too confrontingly evil. After this, I went in with my iPad Pro just to do the sketch for this because I had a rough idea for the layout and I really wanted to sort of experiment with the composition and that kind of thing. So I ended up getting this really cool design where the vampire was sort of floating above her own grave, and as you can see, the grave has been like dug up and her coffin is open and she almost looks like she's flying out of it, and of course she's a vampire, so she is drinking a bottle of blood. I really like this because it really sort of draws your eye from the character, and then her cape sort of goes down towards the grave, and as you can see there are some other graves around in the foreground and the background, and that really sort of helps to frame the piece, and yeah, I think it looks really good. So now I have this sketch done. I've actually printed it out onto some regular printer paper, and I have got some of my Bristol paper here, and I am going to tape the Bristol paper over the top and basically trace over my sketch to get the line art. Now I'm actually deciding to go in with black line art for this, mainly because I really want to sort of push the contrast in this illustration, and I really want to get some like really dark shadows and also some pretty bright highlights. So I thought that the black line art would really help me to get that contrast and still have the like details noticeable. So I'm using a variety of different pens here. I'm using my tombow fudenosuke. I really don't know how to pronounce it, and that was a terrible approach, but you know what, I'm just gonna say my really cool tombow calligraphy type pen. It is an amazing brush pen and I love it so much. I got it from the Jazzy Art box. Other than this, I did use a few I guess they're fine liners, as well as a thicker pen as well. And all of these pens that I'm using today are compatible with the Copic Markers that I'm going to be using. You really got to make sure that you pick you pick inking pens that go well with your markers, otherwise it's just going to smudge and smear all over the place. So for the pose, I really like the way her legs are sort of pointing out, and I've been experimenting a little bit with sort of anatomy styles, and I found one where it's sort of like roughly in the middle of cartoony and slightly more proportionate. I really like the pointy knees. I feel like it gives a bit of a cartoony feel, but also a little bit of femininity, is that a real word, to it that I really like. I really like the way that I drew the bottle for this, especially the blood sort of like sloshing around in the bottle. I really like that, the way I've had it sort of flowing and a little bit of like a drop is sort of flying up, because she's sort of like pouring this bottle up, about to drink all the blood. And yeah, I'm really happy with the sort of textures around the gravestone. I decided to go with rip on the front of the gravestone because, well, that makes sense. But I did a sort of speckly texture just to try and allude a little bit to the texture of the gravestone, because it would be made out of stone. Now, for some of the designs on this, I decided to go with, typical vampire girl, but I was looking up different designs, and this is pretty funny, but I found a sort of outfit which is more of a sexy vampire costume, and I'm definitely not trying to draw it like a sexy vampire, but I really like the way that it had one of those sort of frilly skirts and a sort of a long cape behind. I really liked the sort of cute sort of doll style dress, and I decided to use some of that for my illustration without the sexy parts, because we don't need to get sexy on here. Now, starting on the colouring, I decided to go in with the background first. I do this all the time, well, most of the time, and I do this because I feel like it is the biggest part of the illustration, and it really helps me to sort of get the right contrast on the figure when I colour in the background first. And I'm really happy I did that because the background turned out pretty nice. I did slightly simple shading style where I just added a lot of green onto the grass areas, and I used Prussian blue to shade a lot of the green because I really wanted to push those shadows nice and dark, because this was supposed to be at like nighttime. And after that I went in with the sort of cool grey colours to do the headstones of these graves, and I really like the sort of speckly textured style because I added a few speckles here and there in the line art phase, but I also added a few speckles of different colours in the colouring phase with the light grey sort of colours. I did a similar thing onto the dirt either side of the graves because I obviously wanted the dirt to have that sort of speckly texture as well, but I sort of kept it a little bit more messy, a little bit more scribbly, just to try and distinguish the dirt is different to the, stone. Now I wanted to go with a basic, typical vampire coffin, so I decided to have the coffin on the outside black and the sort of plush cushiony part on the inside of the coffin a nice bright red color. I used my colors cardinal, peony and cadmium red for those parts to have like a really nice amount of contrast. Now for the background, I used a few different colors in this, a mixture of purples and blues, because I just really love pushing purples in night sky drawings. I find it's just really nice looking and gives you a bit more sort of range of hues in the illustration. Now I decided to go with a style where I would have mostly horizontal flicks, and I would try and keep a little bit more texture in this because the sky is a little bit simple, so I wanted to get more texture in there to make it a little bit more visually interesting. So I decided to go with sideways flicks here and there, and I used a few different colors. I used a bunch of different blues, sort of more purpley blues and slightly more greeny blues, and also a few sort of like dark and light blues, just to try and give it all an overall nice look. After this, I decided to go in with some greys for the clouds in the background. Now is the time to draw the last of the headstones, and I decided to just go in with black for those because I really wanted to sort of push that silhouette feel and give it like a creepy gravestone look. And after this, I actually used a gel pen to add some highlights around there, just to sort of draw your eye to them more and sort of define the shape a little bit. So for the overall color palette of this illustration, I definitely tried to keep it mostly cool toned to try and push that sort of dark night feel to it, while also having a few pops of warm colors in there too, mainly red. For the hair, because this is supposed to be me and I do have a sort of like a ombre balayage type thing in my hair. So I decided to do that for the vampire as well, and this time, instead of like a lighter color of my normal hair, I decided to go with red just to sort of push that slight horror aesthetic. Now for the outfit, I mostly went with purples because purple is my favorite color ever, other than yellow, but I really didn't want to add too much yellow in this illustration. But yeah, I really love the way I sort of did some light purples as well as dark purples, and I really tried my best to sort of push the contrast in this and give it like an interesting look with like sort of intense shading in some of the fabric folds, and less shading in some parts of the fabric to sort of like allude to it being a bit of more of a stiffer fabric. And yeah, I'm really happy with the results. So for the skin tone, I decided to go with a slightly dead look, and this was mainly because this is an undead creature. This is me as a vampire, and I wanted her to look undead, so I used some slightly different colors than I would normally coloring in. I used a lot of sort of warm grays around the eyes to sort of give it that sort of sunken in dead look. And I actually used a lot of really pale red colors for this skin tone just to give it a sort of like a pale, like, I don't know, sickly look, mainly just to sort of show that this is definitely not like a living human being. This is a undead human that has turned into a vampire that wants to suck your blood. But yeah, I really love the results of this, and I think it is really interesting. She does kind of look a little bit ugly in the face, but come on, she's dead. Give her a break, I guess. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was an amazing experience, and I loved drawing myself as a vampire. I do have a few more Halloween themed drawing myself videos coming up as well, so keep an eye out for them, and make sure you hit like and subscribe to get your scribble fix in the future, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.